Get ready for the exciting showdown, the biggest news, the toughest competition, and the most thrilling moments. From the gridiron to hardwood, and from the pitch to the track. Join us for Sports Central, the most electrifying sports program on television, every weekday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Spectrum Television. Sports Central, your home for sports.
The depth of knowledge, fun and entertainment you experience on Spectrum Television can never be overstated, especially when you get them all at once. At Spectrum Television, you start your day with insightful political and social discussion, a spotlight on Africa and the world's view. On well-being, we prioritize your health and mental space, staying fit and achieving goals. Stay updated with the business world, financial markets, and global economic analysis. We bring you all the latest from the world of sports and cutting-edge innovations, looking at the future of tech and tech insight. And stay updated with the latest in entertainment and music on Entertainment Now.
Good morning and welcome to Sports Central, brought to you live and exclusive from Spectrum Television from the hills of Ibiakuren right here in Akwa Ibom State. My name is Mfonobong Itina. I'm excited to bring you Sports Central today. A new week, fresh perspectives to look at in the world of sport. Talking about tennis, we had new champions emerging in Wimbledon. Talking about the ATP category where Yannick Sinner had to serve his opponent revenge. As it said, revenge is best served cold. Also go to the world of football where Nigerian Super Falcons are doing quite well in the ongoing WAFCON where they've already qualified for the quarterfinals and their opponents have already been identified. Talking about the Club World Cup, it reached a crescendo just on Sunday, which was yesterday, and Chelsea shocked the whole world as they produced a stunning result to defeat reigning European champions Paris Saint-Germain to lift the Club World Cup. These and many more would form the crux of our conversation today on an exciting day of Sports Central. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll give you the trending stories in Sport Wrap-Up. Stick around. Thanks for sticking around. We'll start from the world of tennis, where an animated Igor Swiatek stood by her chair and center court and shook her head as she stared towards her team, clearly in disbelief of what she had just achieved. A four-time French Open champion who also won the 2022 US Open, Swiatek had largely struggled at Wimbledon throughout her career. A junior champion at the All England Club in 2018, she had never been past the quarterfinals in the main draw. Her only other final on grass came when she was the runner-up at a turn-up event in Germany right before Wimbledon began. But on Saturday, following a tournament that saw her drop just one set and 6 service games, Swiatek became the 8th women's player and only active one to win a major title on all 3 surfaces. Swiatek, the number 8 seed, broke Anisimova in the first game of the match and needed just 57 minutes to become the first Polish woman to win Wimbledon. It was just the 3rd women's major final to feature a 6-love score. Moving to the ATP category, where 5 weeks after his Roland Garros heartbreak, Yannick Sinner flipped the script in style at Wimbledon on Sunday to gain revenge against Carlos Alcaraz and capture his fourth major title. Competing in his maiden final at the championships, the world number one overcame the Spaniard 4-6, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 in a high-quality clash to become the first Italian to win the Wimbledon singles crown. In Paris in early June, Sinner came agonizingly close to glory at the clay-court major, where he held 3 championship points before Alcaraz mounted a jaw-dropping comeback, prevailing in a 5-hour, 29-minute epic to keep his perfect major final record alive. But this time, under the sun and center court, Sinner would not be denied. Sinner not only etched his name into the history books as the first Italian man to win Wimbledon, he's also one title shy of completing the Grand Slam, with only Roland Garros missing from his collection. He leaves London with a 3,430 points lead over Alcaraz in the ATP rankings and a renewed edge in a rivalry that is fast becoming the defining duel of a new era. Now into the world of basketball, where Canada delivered a historic display of long-range shooting to inflict a heavy 113-42 defeat to Nigeria at the 2025 FIBA Under-19 Women's Basketball World Cup in Czech Republic, setting a new tournament record for the highest number of three-pointers made in a singles match at both women's and men's levels. It was a magisterial performance by the Canadians, who became the first team in FIBA Under-19 World Cup history across both genders to register 20 three-pointers in a single fixture. The previous record of 19, jointly held by Japan's women and the United States men, was surpassed emphatically, with 8 Canadian players contributing from beyond the arc. For Nigeria, the defeat brought a sharp contrast to the elation of their historic opening day triumph over China, which had marked their first ever win at the tournament. That 98-88 victory had drawn comparisons to the D-Tigers Olympic quarterfinal run at Paris 2024 and raised hopes that the junior D-Tigers might defy expectations in Brno. However, against the clinical Canadians, they were outmatched in nearly every department. Now to football. Nigeria secured top spot in Group B of the Women's African Cup of Nations on Sunday, despite being frustrated in a 0-0 stalemate against second-place Algeria. While Botswana kept their hopes of joining the duo in the quarterfinals alive with a 2-1 comeback win over Tunisia. As a result, Nigeria will face Zambia in the quarterfinals in a clash of titans at the Stade Labis Wally in Casablanca on Friday. The Super Falcons had already secured their last F berth in matchday 2, affording Justin Madugu an opportunity to rotate his team. The Super Falcons had 24 shots in total, with only 2 on target. Rashida Ajibade was unfortunate not to have been awarded a penalty after she was caught in the penalty area by Wasila Oluwache in the 55th minute. There is lots of the work for the Super Falcons to do ahead of a quarterfinal against one of the most dangerous teams in the tournament. Now to the last story on the list, as Cole Palmer inspired Chelsea to a shock 3-0 FIFA Club World Cup final win against Paris Saint-Germain in New Jersey, as the Premier League side became the first winners of the new-look expanded 32-team tournament. England forward Palmer scored twice and created a third for João Pedro as Chelsea overran the Champions League winners in their first half at the MetLife Stadium. Paris Saint-Germain heavy favourites going into the game following their 4-0 semi-final win against Real Madrid missed 2 clear chances before Palmer opened the scoring on 21 minutes. After failing to hit back against Enzo Maresca's team, Paris Saint-Germain's nightmare performance worsened when midfielder João Neves was shown a red card in the 86th minute, after VAR review showed that the Portugal international deliberately pulled the hair of Chelsea defender Marc Cucurella. Well, these are all the stories we have for you today on Sport Wrap-Up. But not to worry, stick around. We'll join an evolving conversation right after the break.
Get Get ready for the exciting showdown, the biggest news, the toughest competition, and the most thrilling moments. From the gridiron to hardwood, and from the pitch to the track, join us for Sports Central, the most electrifying sports program on television, every weekday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Spectrum Television. Sports Central, your home for sports.
The depth of knowledge, fun and entertainment you
Broadening your horizon is what every living being not only genuinely desires, but heartily pursues and intentionally invests in. For in the gathering of men, only those whose minds are in tune with the dynamics of the past, present, and future innovations, inventions, politics, and governance are respected. They are Spectrum Television, and broadening your horizon is our obsession. Press on your decoder now to connect Spectrum Television on the frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. That is frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. Polarization horizontal, and join our online community at spectrumtv.ng. For further inquiries, please call 0704 158 5642 or 0704 541 7707. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
The depth of knowledge, fun and entertainment you experience.
Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. Well, this is the second part of Sports Central for today, and unfortunately, the captain of the side is unavoidably absent, as well as UT David, and I'm saddled with the responsibility of bringing you the latest stories in the world of sports. Not to fret, it's going to be an entertaining affair right here on Sports Central. We'll start with the world of tennis, where the Lady Igis Swiatek had to overcome all her obstacles on the way to winning Wimbledon for the very first time in her career. Iga Swiatek needed less than an hour to defeat Amanda Anisimova 6-love. 6-love it ended in that particular final, as it was the only time, the second time rather, in the Open era that a women's Grand Slam champion did not lose a single game. For nearly 3 hours, Swiatek dutifully met the rounds. It opened with a packed press conference, and she had to go on to dig deep to get this particular win against the lady Amanda Anisimova. Lots of records being set in that particular tournament right there, as Iga Swiatek had to get all the obstacles out of the way. Remember, she's never gone to the final of a grass court event before she came here. Just a few weeks to the tournament, I think about 2 weeks or thereabouts, she had to go to the Bar Homburg Open, where for the very first time she met the semi-final of a grass court event. Well, we can only say congratulations to the lady Iga Swiatek, and hopefully more to come for her. Yeah, and hopefully her rankings as well. Before this particular tournament, she went as low as world number 8. Well, currently with this particular win, it's looking likely that the lady Iga Swiatek might have a little bit of some, rise in the rankings. And we can only say congratulations to the Polish international, Iga Swiatek, well deserving for her. We'll move to the next story today. So from the Wimbledon, we have ladies Kudermetova and Mertens capturing the Wimbledon doubles title. Well, we all know the lady Kudermetova for being a singles, competitor, but yesterday she had to combine with the lady Elise Mertens to become the ladies doubles champions after an enthralling final on centre court. Kudermetova and Mertens past number 4 seeds CSU Wei and Jelena Ostapenko 3-6, 6-2, 6-4. It ended in a 2-hour and 23-minute thriller to take the championship trophy. Well, the visitors made comeback after comeback on Sunday. After battling to level the match in 1 set apiece, Kudermetova and Mertens were down 4-2 in the third set, but they won the next 4 games to hoist the hard way. Well, when you look at the lady Veronika Kudermetova, you'd expect something big for her, and this is a step to go, maybe a right direction for Kudermetova now. Not really having lots of success in the singles event, as is a big win for her. She was the only player of the 4 who had not previously won a Grand Slam doubles title. This is her very first Grand Slam doubles title, and maybe more to come for her here, because now that she has finally broke that ceiling, hit the dock, probably more to come for the lady. And when you look at Elise Mertens, her doubles, pedigree, she's won 4 Grand Slam double titles. This was the 5th one and the 2nd at Wimbledon. So it's not just a first rodeo for her. She and Sia teamed up to win the 2021 Wimbledon's doubles title. In fact, they were the ones who saved championship points and outlasted Kudermetova and Elena Vesnina in that particular final. So it was almost as if they swapped partners. Ellis Mertens had to leave Su Wei to team up with the lady she beat last year at the Wimbledon's final. So congratulations to the ladies, and hopefully we get to have more partnerships from them, and maybe we can get to see more wins for the lady Veronika Kudermetova and of course Ellis Mertens. Now we move straight to the ATP category where lots of actions happened, but what broke the internet was the man Jannik Sinner, world number 1, finally returning to winning ways for the very first time since returning from the doping case where he had to stay out for a lengthy ban. Jannik Sinner had to defeat Carlos Alcaraz in what was a thrilling encounter at the Wimbledon's finals. Well, 5 weeks after his Roland Garros heartbreak, Jannik Sinner flipped the script in style at Wimbledon just yesterday to get revenge against Carlos Alcaraz and capture his 4th major title. You can say revenge is best served cold, but Jannik Sinner had to do it on a hot afternoon as he defeated Carlos Alcaraz while competing in his maiden final at the championships. That's his very first finals at Wimbledon. The world number 1 overcame the Spaniard 4-6, 6-4. 6-4, 6-4 in a high-quality clash to become the very first Italian to win the Wimbledon single crown. Well, in Paris, remember we talked about it last month. Yeah, last month it was June, where Sinner came very close to glory at the clear court major, where he held 3 championship points just before Alcaraz had to mount that door-breaking comeback to defeat the world number 1, prevailing in the 5-hour, 29-minute epic to keep his perfect major record alive. At that point, it was 5 wins for Carlos Alcaraz at the major finals. But yesterday, Jannik Sinner made sure he put a dent to that particular record as the 23-year-old Italian came out with purpose and precision, hammering ground strokes into the Alcaraz forehand and gradually tightening his grip on the match. As his serve grew stronger, Sinner wrestled control away from the 22-year-old Spaniard, holding a 5-match losing streak in the Bears head-to-head series. Before a particular match, now we've talked about it for quite a while now. Jannik Sinner has always fallen short anytime he has to face Carlos Alcaraz. But yesterday was where the ceiling had to be breached, as Jannik Sinner got that convincing victory, just dropped the very first set 4-6, but had to come back to win the next 3 sets by the same scoreline, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. Well, this particular rivalry between Carlos Alcaraz and the man Jannik Sinner is definitely going to continue for years to come, and we hope for the best for the 2 tennis superstars. When you look at the gap, the gulf between both of them in the ATP rankings, Jannik Sinner is living in London currently with 3,430 points lead over Carlos Alcaraz at the ATP Live ranking. So when you look at that particular gulf now between both tennis superstars, you can tell that Jannik Sinner would definitely be on top of the rankings for quite a while. Maybe till we get to see the very next Grand Slam of the year, because right now we're going to be having more tour level competitions and maybe 500 events, 1,000 level events. So not enough points for Carlos Alcaraz to bridge that gap between himself and the current world number 1. Congratulations to Jannik Sinner for his very first Wimbledon win. The next story on our plate is Canada ripping Nigeria at the Under-19 Women's Championship, Basketball Championship. Well, Nigeria actually got off to a good start at this particular tournament with their very first win against China. And loads of Nigerians were beginning to draw comparisons with what we saw with the D-Tigress at last year's Paris Olympics. But it was not to be so, as the Canadian team used Nigeria to create some sort of record for themselves in that particular game after delivering a historic display of long-range shooting to inflict a heavy 113-42 defeat on Nigeria, setting a new tournament record for the highest number of 3-pointers made in a single match at both women's and men's level. Well, this was the very first time we are seeing, a cup game like this, registering 20 3-pointers in a singles fixture, and the previous record of 19, jointly held by Japan's women and the United States men, was surpassed emphatically, with about 8 Canadians contributing from beyond the arc, as the lady Argot Maka spearheaded the onslaught, scoring 5 of her 7 3-point attempts en route to a game-high 18 points. Well, her clinical finishing from the perimeter was instrumental in establishing Canada's dominance earlier on, as Nigeria struggled to cope with the North Americans' relentless ball movement and unerring accuracy from distance. The results came just a day after Israel had produced their third best perimeter shooting display in the competition history. So just a day after that, we had Nigeria doing this against Canada. Well, Canada's achievement now sits atop the all-time list for 3-point field goals made in a single FIBA Under-19 World Cup game, ahead of Japan's 19 against the Chinese Taipei in 2021. And Nigeria now would look forward to their next game to see how they can right the wrongs of what is already looking like a very tumultuous outing for them. But despite the loss, Nora Ezike, who had started against China with a flawless 25-point debut, remains Nigeria's standout performer. She's currently averaging 13 points and 7.5 rebounds per game, and has shown considerable leadership for a player making her very first appearance on the global stage. And we'll move to the very next story, the last story, before we switch to football stories around the world. Well, the former president of the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, Dan Ngere, has launched a scathing critique of the structure of the re-established National Sports Commission, calling its current setup without a full board a dangerous anomaly that undermines accountability and corporate confidence. Well, the man was speaking in an interview, and he said it's an aberration that you can have 2 people running a National Sports Commission without a board. According to the man, the National Sports Commission only consists of a chairman currently and a director general. These are the only people who are started with the responsibility of running that corporation, which is, according to the man now, a multi-million-dollar corporation. And for him, it's almost like suicide to establish such a board, such a an organization without a proper structure. Well, according to him, the Commission's failure to install a board comprised of individuals with corporate governance expertise reflects a broader culture of opacity, inefficiency, and lack of accountability that has plagued the Nigerian sports administration for decades. According to him, the need to have a board. Recently, we've had lots of problems, especially with the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, where some athletes have had to be on the receiving end of what has been level of incompetence by the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, which as a body succumbs to the National Sports Commission. So it all makes sense now why we have issues like this, because the National Sports Commission does not have a very good commission structure. Hopefully, we can get to sort all of this and get the National Sports Commission back on track. Well, we'll take a quick breather here, and when we're back, it's going to be football stories all the way. Stick around. Thank you for staying tuned, and we return and would go straight to the ever exciting world of the round level game called football. And we'll start straight from the home scene right here in Nigeria, where the Delta State Sports Commission has formally protested to the Nigerian National League following what it described as the unruly and destructive behaviors of fans from wiki tourists after their game against Warri Wolves in the final match of the 2025 NNL Super 8 playoffs at the Stephen Keshi Stadium right there in Asaba. Well, the highly anticipated clash, which saw Warri Wolves emerge as champions, was marred by violent scenes after wiki tourists fell behind 3-0 by halftime. Enraged by their team's poor performance, the fans had to vandalize stadium property, pulling out plastic seats and hauling them onto the pitch alongside stones and other objects, some of which were directed towards the match official. Well, security personnel and event marshals were quickly deployed to restore order, but not before significant damage had already been done to one of Nigeria's top-tier sporting facilities, which raises the point of fans not being able to control themselves when football matches do not seem to go their way in Nigeria. We've had these cases over and over again, but now happening at the finals of the Super 8 playoffs right there at the NNL. Wiki Tourist fans involved in vandalizing properties at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. Well, we can only hope that the management of the Delta Sport Commission can get justice for what has been done, because that stadium needs to be rehabilitated as it stands, and we hope that proper punishment will be meted out to those cross sections of fans or maybe the club side itself, because these kinds of stories do not have to go unchecked in the Nigerian football scene. With that particular story, we still stay put right here as we go to Africa, the African scene on the continent, where Nigeria had to beat Benin Republic to advance to the semi-finals of the WAFU B Under 20 World Cup. Well, Nigeria defeated their West African neighbors, Benin Republic, 4-1 to advance to the semi-finals, as the coach Aliu Zubaru-led team pulled off an impressive and a comeback win to defeat the Young Cheetahs. Goals from Mohamed Abdullahi, Ezekiel Kwangu, Imana Muhammad, and Abdul Jalil Kamaldeen ensured the Flying Eagles are through to semi-finals. The man of the match was Odinaka Okoro, player of Sporting Lagos. This particular tournament was scheduled as a preparatory ground for Nigeria for the forthcoming Under 20 World Cup, which will be held later this year. So we can only hope all the best for the Flying Eagles of Nigeria, headed by Coach Aliu Zubaru. I was still talking about another Nigerian team. This time around, we moved to the female camp, and it's the Super Falcons of Nigeria, 9-time champions of the WAFCON. The opponents have been readily identified for the quarterfinals of the WAFCON 2024. Well, Nigeria is set to face Zambia, but not without that pulsating win, a pulsating draw rather, against Algeria. Nigeria secured top spot in Group B of the Women's African Cup of Nations just yesterday, despite being frustrated in the 0-0 stalemate against second place Algeria. Botswana, on the other hand, kept their hopes of joining the duo in the quarterfinals with a 2-1 comeback win over Tunisia. As a result, Nigeria will face Zambia in the quarterfinals in a clash of titans at the Stade Labi Zwalu in Casablanca on Friday. Well, for the Super Falcons, they already secured their last eight berth after match day 2, where they defeated the Botswana ladies by 1-0. And Justin Madugo found that opportunity as the right one to heavily rotate the team, as the man made about 8 changes to the team as he brought in some players who were considered fringe players, like Ifeoma Onumonu. Rashida Tejibade, the captain of the side, still was part of the lineup. We have Francisca Odega also in that particular lineup. Chiamaka Nadozie in goal. Chiwendu Hezwo starting as well. We had the likes of Jennifer Chegini. The lady was actually very impressive on the night as she showed her dribbling prowess, unlocking the defense on a couple of times, but unable to get the final balls into the back of the net. Well, we can only wish the Super Falcons all the best of luck as they get to face their next opponent, Zambia. Remember, Zambia went to the finals of the WAFCON in the very last edition, where they lost out to the South African girls, the Banyana, in the particular finals. And this time around, they'll be hoping to at least equal that second place finish when they get to face Nigeria. But it starts with that particular entertaining fixture against 9-time champions, the Super Falcons of Nigeria. As Nigerians, we have to be patriotic and wish the Super Falcons the best of luck as they get to face against the Zambia ladies. And now talking about another opponent, we're talking about Ghana, still at the WAFCON. Remember, we've talked about Ghana in recent times, extremely their difficult campaign in this year's WAFCON, even on other times as well. Ghana has particularly missed out on the last 2 episodes of the WAFCON. So this time around, they'll be looking forward to seeing how they can qualify. Currently, they have just 1 point in Group C, and both sides need victory to stand a chance of reaching the quarterfinals. The match is scheduled for 8 p.m. West African time at the Berkane Stadium in Morocco. And it's the final group game for both teams, who are level on 1 point apiece after 2 matches. With defending champions South Africa and Mali each on 4 points, and facing each other, Ghana and Tanzania know that nothing short of a win will suffice for them to qualify for the next stage. Tanzania currently sits third in the group with goal difference of -1 and are currently better placed than Ghana, whose inferior goal difference of -2 leaves them rock bottom. A win for either team would lift them to 4 points and could secure second spot, or at the very least, place them amongst the two best teams, best third place teams in the tournament, depending on the other results of other group games. With time running out, we'll just go straight to the Club World Cup final, which happened just yesterday in the United States of America at the MetLife Stadium. Even the United States President Donald Trump was present to witness as Chelsea had to produce a stunning result, a performance, whatever you like to call it, to defeat reigning European champions Paris Saint-Germain. 3-0 it ended as Chelsea had to run riot in a game where a lot of people expected Paris Saint-Germain to dominate proceedings. It was Cole Palmer who inspired Chelsea to shock Paris Saint-Germain by 3-0. The man also ended the tournament being the best player of the tournament. He scored twice and created a third goal as he had an assist for the man, the new signing, João Pedro, as Chelsea ran riot over European champions. You can see there in the picture Donald Trump celebrating right there. Chelsea's captain Reece James had to ask the man to excuse them for their celebration, but the man said, "No, I'm going to stick right here. I love soccer." According to them, they call it soccer over there in the United States of America. But right here in Sports Central, we call it football, and that's where we draw a wrap on today's episode of Sports Central. Well, they say time flies when you do what you enjoy. But not to worry, we'll be back tomorrow for an exciting discussion in the world of sports. More stories. We still have lots of stories we've missed out on today, but rest assured, we'll bring it tomorrow to you. I still remain with Fonobong Itina and enjoy the rest of wholesome content right here on Spectrum TV. See you tomorrow.